Need to cut you on. Gwell, Jinkat ka nasket, yugi hechosak, kunyaki sakshawe, teshwush kanachuta'ati. Gwell Jinkat ka nas, gwell Jinkat ka dech, gwell Jinkat. Chakun yugi sa. Adreach wasaku kal de genach, kone yakanajuhu, aya, ya hawush kanachuta'ati. Ya khat wooch. A wooch awe a dot we mashed potatoes. K'úntsʼ. K'úntsʼ aya hakusi ichsati. Chak. Gall telli saku hechosaku. Kewchne ko acha na kawani gadat awe. A day ida duniya we k'úntsʼ chak. Du sunny aya atlen k'úntsʼ awe we uski yak. A shawsha hik k'úntsʼ teen. We uski yak a de awe a yaus chat de. Chat aya yadu we keys. We keys tak tai awe ausha yich. Ya de kat we k'úntsʼ aya a kawaha kat itai. Aka awe du yagu yikt. Eet hini kach awe ʼaduwóosʼ. We gish gwal su chadaka sa we eet Kayaaní. Du yagu awe a shawsha hikteen. Aka kuch de would de kuch. We tai a kade awe a kawasus ya chalta kat we Kayaaní. Eet kadach Kayaaní. Aka tauk iti aya ye ausani. Yes ko a kuch de would de kuch. Aka we k'úntsʼ a dachawe a kawaha. Chashugu uski yak. Ye o a shawlahik we yis k'úntsʼ teen. Tak nach awe has awacha we k'úntsʼ. Gwal shat kiatskuch wusatiin we ga kechne chana kawanik ada. Ek yoch satini chal de kat yuhan igu ayach Juan. Gwal klesh klingid yu katangidat ye jine. Akachu ya keguch ledzich aye gugeng, just aye gugeng. Achawe kaltegi nach kone adat ye jagachtune. Okay, potato time. So we were, Shanaqait had asked about mashed potatoes. So there's a couple different things we got to think about here. One is the verb. So this gives us the verb dictionary does. And this tells us everything we need to know about the verb, I think. Now, well, there's a few things we're going to have to figure out. And we can go look it up. We'll go look up ʼatudli in the Lingi to English section. And so we go scrolling up. Kayaaní, flatten, roll flat, especially metals. Mash by pressing flat, which in Lingi to Taanáx, that's what you're doing. They're not flat potatoes, I get it. So there is a ʼatudli adjective, which does mean for something to be flat. Like that's the word for a butter knife, I think, is ʼatudli. Oh, I gotta look it up. It might be one of those things where there's these closely related sounds. Anybody remember that?
Sticky sounds. That one?
Well, it's like with ch. So k'úntsʼ and k'úntsʼ are different but very similar things. So k'úntsʼ is for something to be sharp, and so is k'úntsʼ. But it's probably a sharp, pointy thing somehow. And similar to ʼaduwóosʼ and ʼwooch. So ʼwooch and ʼaduwóosʼ. So there is this thing that you get in Tlingit where that you have a small ejective thing that just sort of changes a little bit. And they're pretty much the same thing, but kind of not. So the word for butter knife, yeah. So this is different. Okay. So shita ʼatk. So ʼatk is for something to be flat. So when we get into ʼatk, I think we're looking at something maybe a little different. So this is probably, we'll come back to like figuring this out, but I want us to always sort of cross-reference these verb roots so that when I think it's beneficial when you start learning a new verb root to think about how that verb root works. And so some of it you're looking at like, what is the meaning here and how do I understand that meaning? So I think getting to the meaning sends us back into these verb notes. And then we'll look up ʼatk, and then we'll look up ʼatk and just see if those are similar things. So coming down, let me check the chat real quick. Okay, gonna sheesh, putting butter knife in there. So here we get ʼatk. So to roll is mashing, rolled flat, and this gives us kawduwat'ál'i, ʼaduwóosʼ, and ʼaduwóosʼ, which ʼaduwóosʼ we should have been able to predict from the Naish story. Just in terms of like what this means, it doesn't really show us, I guess, a whole lot. And then I don't think ʼatk will be in this one. It's on that list of ones he still has to work on. So one more resource, and we're going to come back in and mess around with this verb, and we'll maybe make a noun out of it. So the last place I would check is the stem list. So these are, if I encounter a new verb root that I haven't looked at before, I'll usually just look it up in every way I can, just to see, is there anything I should know about this? And here we get k'úntsʼ. He has it marked, I think, here as in variable, but I don't think it is because we could see it go long. To press flat, and that's really all that we get on there. Maybe it's related to dot, which is to, anybody know what dot is? So sometimes if it's kind of cross-referencing something, we might go look it up. It means to imprint. We usually use this one for typewriter, typing, that type of stuff. And then I'm curious about ʼatk, just as a verb root, so we could see if there's similarities to that in this one. This will be the last thing I look up. And it means flat. And then we see ʼatch as an alternative, which is the name for red ribbon seaweed. Interesting, right? Shaqask is right there, don't know. And so this is just how I like to look at how things tend to be interconnected in Tlingit and just see some of these things have very similar types of things. I do believe that this is in the Elizabeth Nyman story. Okay, maybe I'll look at one more thing. Wait, I gotta go to, I'm gonna go to the retype version of Nyman, specifically this one, and I'll just see if it's in this story, because I think it might be. Oh. Okay. I think it's in a newer, I think I have seen this verb though. Okay. Anyways. Coming back. We have the verb dictionary. We had found mashed. Let me get back to it. So this gives us k'úntsʼ, k'úntsʼ, and banana k'úntsʼ. So those two things can tell me quite a bit about this verb. what do they tell me?
It's always high.
It is always high.
Can have an object.
Yes, it has an object, although they're both unmarked in this case.
It has a subject as well, so it's transitive.
Yes, it's transitive. What else? So if I'm going to say, okay, there's an object, subject, I want to write this theme out.
Zero conjugation.
Is my theme done?
I think there's a ka preverb before the subject.
So thematic, yep.
Gonna choose.
Ah. This guy will be aqua, strawberry. Look at my color scheme. What else? Okay, start with this one. This one tells us some information that's already on here, right? It tells us this. It doesn't really tell us this or that. We have to imply that it's there. Does it tell us this?
Well, I don't see a DZ or an S in there, so I'm liking the no conjugation.
Yep, well, yeah, because this is a command. So if this is a command and there's nothing there, then that's a zero conjugation verb, right? Or else it'd be k'úntsʼ, or k'úntsʼ, or k'úntsʼ, and we don't see na, ka, or ka, so it has to be zero. So then when we saw the perfective form in Lear's notes being short and high, that makes sense. Like that's what we should expect it to be. And when it goes perfective, or he has a third person imperfective, we see the popping up. So this tells us something too. Oh, I guess what are the last two things in our theme right here? This part. What's the classifier? Zero.
Zero.
The root is the T pinched, high tone A, L pinched.
Right. Now, what kind of verb is this?
Ooh,
This
I
tells
guess
us
act,
it's an act verb because
it's not perfective.
yes, there's an imperfective, so it must be, and we know it's not a state verb. Oops, so act verb, and here's the little extra information, even though that's already present. So then this could be purple. This can be, ooh, what do we got? Mocha? How nice.
Pretty.
Okay, so this gives us, now we can say, so this is a good example of how we can use our nice new 700-page conjugator document. Is this the most current one? Okay. Okay, so looking at this, so here, whoops, where'd it go? So we've got object, subject, 0, ʼatk. So what if we say, I am going to mash potatoes? Mashed potatoes is not a place. That would be fun. But we'll get the word for mashed potatoes. So I am going to mash potatoes. So I'm a gonna is where we're gonna go to look that up.
Future.
Future.
Positive.
So the future, here we are with that's a 0 classifier. And the way that this future one works, I kind of tried to pack them all in here. Okay, so this is one you've got to remember to look up at this box right here. If it's na or 0, there's nothing in the preverb. If it's ga, you must always have k in the preverb. If it's qa, you must always have ye in the preverb. Non-negotiable, no surprises, no mysteries, no exchanges. ʼatudli.átk.
I thought this one had a thematic, so it would be on a different page.
Oh, you are correct.
Goodness, geez. Ah,
Okay. You guys were bored to use this document. Okay. So now, same rule applies. Na, this is a 0, so there's nothing in the preverb. So we should have ka. So this, what this says, capital C, capital V, you can substitute that for a thematic prefix. The consonant is a K, the vowel is an A. So wherever you see CV for this verb, you can substitute ka. So this tells you it will be long and high because it's a future. How am I going to say, I'm gonna mash potatoes?
k'úntsʼ. Go ahead.
I needed to see the thing one more time, but k'úntsʼ.
K'úntsʼ. Okay. Okay. I am not gonna mash potatoes. Potatoes.
k'úntsʼ, kawduwat'ál'i.
We gotta have something else. I'm not gonna. Did we get?
k'úntsʼ, kawduwat'ál'i. Isn't it low tone in the stem over the stem? Oh, this is always high.
Yes, you're correct. But this one rejects all low tones. So I'll go low. I say high because I got apostrophes.
Wait, and why does it stay high again?
So the short answer is any theme marked high will not go low.
Oh, okay.
And then the ones that stay high are what we call ejective, meaning they end with an apostrophe, or glottal, which just means it's a carryover from tant a tlingit, and it means that it stays high. The only case where this would is it can go low if it's a short high. Well, it can go low if you add things like yeah on it. Like for example, if, okay, we're gonna do we mash potatoes, and then we're gonna do I can't mash these potatoes. The unmashable potatoes, right? Okay. So let's go with we mashed potatoes. So what are we going to do now? I mean, we're going to get to a point, I think if we do this enough times, our brain will be like, oh, I remember that one. I remember that prefix. I remember. Or I just know how to put it together. I don't know. But for now, where are we going to go? We got to find this we mashed potatoes.
The second line.
Well, it's not going to be here. This is the future.
Perfecto.
Oh,
That means it's already.
Ka-
Perfective. But it also, yes, perfective thematic. So here we go. Perfective, thematic, did, was, happened. This one is separated by conjugation type. So
Ah,
this is a 0 and a 0 classifier, so we're on the right page. I did add some text down here. In the perfective, thematic prefixes sa, ka, and ka in the third person only will be sewa, ewa, ewa, because it just needs to be more complicated. Other than that, I think this is pretty solid. I had to tax my little brain to get this thing all put together. I was like, but how am I going to note what it's doing? And I think I maybe figured it out. I don't know. We'll see. But by testing it, we'll see if I really got it. Because this is one example where I had to think really hard about how to put this down, because it does something a little different.
I think we need some thematic sentences.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because I've been testing it, and every time I use the conjugator for the sentences for intermediate, I at least get the verb right. And so it's been working really well for me, but we haven't assigned them any thematic verbs. And
I'll get make t-shirts that said, at least I got the verb right. Last time I made Lingi t-shirts, it was a bit of a, I still have like one t-shirt that belongs to somebody. I don't know who. It was like, I'm a bad, if my job was distributor, like people aren't getting their thing. How it's gonna go. Okay, so how are we gonna find it? So the first one is we mashed potatoes.
So first person plural.
Yep.
And there it is.
There it is. It is going to be short and high.
K'úntsʼ ʼaduwóosʼ.
Well, there's this capital C, capital V, which we have to substitute in there.
Kawduwat'ál'i.
Cow to. And if we mash these k'úntsʼ in Dísi or ʼaduwóosʼ, come to a tuk. So now I come back here, cow to a tuk, right? And so there are some things that we have to make these substitutions in our mind, right? The capital CV, and then also the verb root. Like we have to put the verb root in there according to that stem. So here's one where I was trying to figure out how. So they, singular they, mashed potatoes. Still on the same card, the same page. This one has two V's.
Ka.
Yes. I had to think so hard about, I was like, but doesn't it get two A's right there? It gets, but then I was like, but if it's like a U, does it get two? It goes long right there. That's what happens. Kawduwat'ál'i.
See, I didn't know that, but I read your conjugator.
Right? Like there's so much stuff. And I do think the human mind is capable of remembering all of this stuff. But I think you gotta have an answer key while you're doing it, so you don't have to wait to speak the language, right? And it's mechanical and weird to sort of put yourself in this position where you have to keep looking stuff up.
René,
Ah,
I have a question. AKAA, ʼaduwóosʼ. If I took out one of those second A's, would it still be pronounced the same?
ʼaduwóosʼ and ʼaduwóosʼ. It'd be very slightly different. So this I would say ʼaduwóosʼ and ʼaduwóosʼ.
Okay,
And if there was a place, like let's
that
say,
always confuses me.
yeah, like it's just something we have to keep in mind with the prefixes. Sometimes, and those are things like if that's the mistake that you make, everyone's going to know what you said. But what if we said they didn't mash potatoes? I don't know if this one, I don't know how far I got in this thing though. Yeah, I guess I did get this one.
René,
Ah,
did you say that was third singular or plural?
third singular.
So would it be the gray one? With one A? No. Oh, yeah.
With no object.
Okay. With no.
Yeah, so that's, and this is interesting. Like, so when we look over here, we've got 3, which means subject only. Or, this is where we've got to sort of kind of figure out how this works in our mind, because you can't document everything. This would only be third person object, third person subject. Because if you were to say they flattened me, you would say khat kawat'ál'i, and now you get kawat'ál'i. Oh, but that should be CVV as well. Okay. Hold on.
So I know you do it for your other documents, René. Is there a draft version or date on the front of the conjugator?
Yes.
Okay, good. Cheers.
So this one should say, if you go scroll all the way up to the top,
Because that was a conversation before you joined, is how do we find the latest one that's a broken link?
right. And I try to save it. I try to just save over the original, but that doesn't always work because sometimes people's browsers just grab the old one.
We should talk.
Hmm.
There's a new feature in Google Drive.
Oh, yeah, okay, okay. Okay, so if we said well, hold on. So the conjugator does not pluralize third person because it doesn't have to, right? Because if we say they all mashed potatoes, I want to say these sentences very dramatically.
Do you want to put k'úntsʼ in front of
Oh, sure.
Us, k'úntsʼ, ʼaduwóosʼ.
Well, yeah, we just got to put the hus in the right spot, though.
Oh,
It's going to go,
k'úntsʼ has. Mhm.
you could say has to kunzi, has, but we're not going to do it. Has to kawat'ál'i. So they didn't mash potatoes.
#k'úntsʼ, us,
No has.
ʼaduwóosʼ.
Kawduwat'ál'i. So with a thematic, we had a kawa. So a kawa. I want to fix this part right here. I was going to do it now, but I don't think I'm going to do it. I'll do it later. Okay. So then what we need to go to is the negative imperfective and the negative perfective are the same prefix. So when we come down, we are looking for that. And then this is going to be also long and high. So we go from ʼaduwóosʼ to k'úntsʼ with k'úntsʼ. And you can say, you put k'úntsʼ inside or outside of the k'úntsʼ. You could say k'úntsʼ kawduwat'ál'i. So now we're going to have the CV right there, followed by w. But this reveals a lot of stuff to us. So then you could say k'úntsʼ kawduwat'ál'i. But now that we know how to use this, we can say, I am happy they mashed potatoes. So I'm going to say ʼaduwóosʼ. I can copy this exactly as that negative perfective, add an I. ʼaduwóosʼ k'úntsʼ kawduwat'ál'i. I'm happy they mashed potatoes. So I think the last, perhaps, step here, what I would probably do for a name is going back to the perfective thematic, looking at the fourth person, kawduwat'ál'i. So now I can go back to this document where, oh, here it is. So, kawduwat'ál'i is it was mashed. I can add an attributive suffix, and that's how I would say mashed potatoes. Kawduwat'ál'i k'úntsʼ.
Why do we use the negative form up in the sentence ʼaduwóosʼ to put the, is that that either also functioning as attributive?
So it's not attributive. So like one thing I did try to do, so here's, this would be a page, and then you flip it over. Here's another page, and this says, here's the other modes you can build off of this mode. And for Tlingit, it's very important that we remember this. It's all about structure. It's not about related meanings, right? So the best example is the habitual. So you'd say, you'd say, wooch, I always eat it. But if you put tesh in front of it, that doesn't get you never eat it. It gets, I haven't eaten it yet. So what we have to do is just program that stuff into our brain. So this is called the subordinate. So like that or when it happened. So you'd say, and that's what you're doing. You're saying, I'm happy that it happened, right? So whenever you have that, you're going to have a negative, usually the sort of base to work off of is a negative perfective with this IU suffix.
Okay.
This is the relational suffix, so it will be opposite of the tone before it. If you go look up the potential, which I think for the thematics, I still have to do progressive, hortative, habitual, and potential. So my spring break got broke. Oh, so this, okay, now this didn't show up. I'm glad I looked at this. So if I do this right, this will be your little X.
Oh.
And that, if you see the little X, that means it's attributive because it's always low. Other than that, it follows all the same rules. That's a lot, I get it. But y'all are ʼaduwóosʼ. Y'all are really something, so it's okay. Thoughts, questions? Kawduwat'ál'i.
Can you show the
Renee?
notes? Wait for questions. Or
Oh,
well, you answer questions, goodness gracious.
Renee? Could you at some time just do us a grammar lesson on some of this stuff?
Sure.
Sheesh.
Which, so like, how to link them or which, because this is
Well,
all part of, yeah.
I am not familiar with some of the more, this is a rude term, obscure verb conjugations. And so I'm encountering them in the context of putting things together without really understanding what they're about.
Sure.
And that would be helpful. Sheesh.
Yes, because they are just kind of listed here, right? And so it's like potential, negative potential. Some of them too, like just so you know, like I am adjusting the names a little bit. Like I think I'm really close. Well, I did change it. So this one is potential attributive, which I'm just calling can't. Like I really think the verb mode should just really correspond to the approximated meaning. So like this should be the might not, the would have, the no way it can. I don't know, or can't. And so the area that gets us, I think, into really murky waters is I think our English brain wants it to make sense into how English works. And it's not going to work that way. Tlingit just has these different structures. And so there's a couple of things I've got for this. So if you scroll in the opening sort of cards, it gives you like an approximate interpretation of what these verb modes are. So do or be, don't do, don't be, right? And you can go through this whole list. These are the major ones. Like I think if you know how to do all of these, like you can converse fully. Some of them are more, like you can make this into a question, which Raven likes to do. Is there no way you can't trade me this? Like he just talks really complicated. And so you don't have to talk like Raven, but as you go through these, what this tries to do is say, like, here's a future, and you could build a future subordinate. And subordinate means it's tied to something else. That or when it will. So I could say, ʼaduwóosʼ, k'úntsʼ, kawduwat'ál'i. I'm happy they are going to mash potatoes, which the mashing potatoes is just the theme of the night. But so what this says, even though there's a bunch of stuff here, the one thing that changes is you add this relational suffix to it. And now you have just tied two verbs together. ʼaduwóosʼ. Or you could put them both in the future. ʼaduwóosʼ. I will feel good when I see you. That's a lot. I know it's a lot. So this document is trying to like smush a lot of things in. And I do need to finish, I think the closest I got to sort of explaining how these things work, because there are documents that explain how these things work. I think Eggleston did in his thesis, I think Crippen did in his thesis, I think Lear does in his documents, but also like I'm trying to get just like the street guide to it, right? Like we're writing a language revitalization handbook with a group, and I said I want aunties and uncles to be able to pick this up who didn't go to college. I don't think you need to have like a PhD to understand what's going on here. And so as I try to sort of think about ways to continue to streamline this stuff, it's with conversations with Luhan that this happens. So I think in this document, which I guess, I think we should probably read this chapter. So here's this chapter in the verb. This is supposed to be the guide to the little board game thing. And so it talks about these verb modes, right? And so these are the major ones: imperfective, perfective, future. Like those are ones you use a lot in talking, both the positive and negative versions of those. So like is or is happening, isn't or isn't happening, became that way or happened, didn't become that way, it didn't happen, will be that way, will happen, won't be that way, won't happen. then as you go through, it sort of shows how these things tend to stack up when you start getting into what they're doing. And what this does, it just sort of expands the prefix. So when you say cha, for example, this is what's there, is a zero object, cha subject, and a zero classifier. So you only have one thing that you can hear or see in the prefix. But then it goes through and it shows you what kinds of things will pop up when you start shifting this thing around. And this is, for this example, these are zero classifier examples. And then it goes through and it starts showing you, here's your 4 conjugation spots. So you have g, zero, na, or qa. Then you have y, or qa. On slots 1 and 3 is where you have the actual conjugation prefixes. Ga, zero, na, or qa. You can only have one of those at a time. They cancel each other out. They do ga and zero, or ga, let's see, hold on. Zero and qa only function as true conjugation prefixes. They're only there for commands, hortatives, potentials, conditionals. Ga and na have one extra job each. Ga also pops up in the future, and na also pops up in the progressive. For the 4th category, you can have yu or qa, perfective, or the qa mode. You cannot have both of them. And then we get the irrealis, which pops up sometimes when there's a break with reality for some reason. That's how we mash potatoes. Oh wait, a potato masher. Okay, hold on. So now we got to do a potato masher. So if we have kawduwat'ál'i, so these are potatoes that have been mashed. They have reached this. Okay, we might end up with. Okay, I'm not going to mess with it now. Kawduwat'ál'i. Okay. On kawduwat'ál'i. That's what I would suggest. On kawduwat'ál'i.
And what's the on doing one more time?
What is the on doing? Can somebody tell me? I was just going to ask you that.
Is it thing and then the end's actually a suffix?
Yes to the second part.
I think it's the empty base.
Yes to that part.
Thing people mash it with, like the ʼa'n is with.
A'in. So a'in can become on, and it will quite often. So that's ach'in, du'in, a'in, ka'in, which likes to become k'ún, and a'in, with it. Which is wild because we have to remember, like technically if we translated this word for word, how these words work from Tlingit to English, you would say it's with. As in like its bone, its leg, it's like the possessive relational form. With it, people mash thing. On
Okay, Hane,
Ah,
if I was to say she or the one who mashes the potatoes, would I say it like this? We akawa ʼatudli.
so the one who mashes potatoes. Yeah, k'úntsʼ, so you can say k'úntsʼ, kawduwat'ál'i. But I would probably, because it's being, I would probably follow this same naming protocol that's kind of up here. So I would probably say k'úntsʼ kawduwat'ál'i. Maybe. No, I think k'úntsʼ kawduwat'ál'i. The one who mashes potatoes.
Did we ever do the last one?
Oh, I don't think well, I don't think this one is ready for it yet. Because we're gonna end up with a potential. We're gonna end up with a ʼate in front of it. We are gonna end up with k'wa, so we're gonna have ʼate k'wa, and I think we're gonna. But the one thing I don't understand is how the stem is going to be. ʼate k'wat'ál'i. And this is one where I wanted to show you this one, not to just make it more complicated, but would say kawduwat'ál'i. Yeah, but to show you, I do think this is a case that would go. That one would probably go short. Low.
Is
I think
the
all of those might go low. I don't
is the in the conjugator, or is that just
It is.
okay?
So if you go to, I just haven't done the thematic version of it. But basically, when you build a potential, it could happen, it could be, or they could do the thing. So usually it has wooch in front of it, right? Like let's say ha, right? Like we can go, and for potentials, we kind of have to work with ones where we can look up the stem. So I'll show you an example with like can't eat it, right? Like let's say I got like an allergy or something. So if we go here, we'll go look up ha. It's a 0-act verb. If we scroll down, we'll see ʼate I would probably say because that's how I've heard it. They were looking for something to eat. But this one, you'll see like this has both of those forms listed. So here you got I looked it up, so I'll know the stem. It's short, it's long and low, long and low. So now I'll go back here, and now I'll say, so I can go down here and say kwa, so that it's going to be kwa ha. That's what it's going to be. So I could say gwash kwa ha. Maybe I might eat it. Gwash kesh kwa ha. I might not eat it. Kesh, or no, not kesh, let's say kwa yin. So this has to go opposite. Now also has to get to y in front of it. I would have eaten it. Kesh ade kwa ye. Yeah. There's no way I can eat it. And if we do this one, that's why like I hold back on teaching potentials. I think they're useful. Then like everything should just stay low, because the just flattens everything out. Oh, kesh ade kwa ye. But you have to remember, like, so a potential, if you want to use these, like can't do it, it's always going to have the irrealis, the conjugation, ka mode, and a plus I classifier.
Sheesh.
So what's the difference between the subordinate and the potential?
The subordinate doesn't have kesh ade. It doesn't necessarily have, well, it cannot have a plus I classifier. It has to be minus I. So even like you can do a subordinate imperfective. So you could say, ʼaduwóosʼ ye ti. I'm glad they're here. Right? So then you go from yati to ti. So it doesn't have kesh ade. It has a -I classifier. And then the suffix is a relational one, so it's going to go up or down, where this attributive always stays low. So for example, you could say, I'm glad that I ate it, right? So if you want to say I'm glad that I ate it, you would have ʼaduwóosʼ, and then we can look up the negative perfective, and I'd say ʼaduwóosʼ. I'm glad I ate it. ʼaduwóosʼ. So we'd have, just so we can see it, we'd have ʼaduwóosʼ as opposed to kesh ate. So the +I classifier makes it go long in the prefix. Christian, wasa.
I was wondering why the negative imperfective and the negative perfective are the same, and I was wondering if you could explain why they look that way.
Yeah. So just in terms of what they have, like, I guess if you look at what's here, this is something where it's probably not truly accurate. And what I mean by that is if you have a negative imperfective, it's not going to have the perfective marker. But what tends to happen is a perfective marker tends to gobble up the it just tends to cancel out the irrealis. Because I think it says, like, we do kind of the same thing, so why not just let me do it for you? So I guess if you're thinking of truly the negative imperfective, if you erase that perfective marker, but all of these are still going to be identical. So you're going to still end up with kechwacha, I'm not eating it, as opposed to kechwacha. So well, I think you'd have, the difference is going to be, so going back to eating. So if we go to the negative imperfective, you have kechwacha. So you have the stem going short and high. And when you go to negative perfective, kechwacha, exactly the same. I don't know. That's just, there's some areas where it's like, but I don't eat it and I'm not eating it and I didn't eat it. You would just, if it was really important for someone to know that you're using the perfective, you would give them context, like tatke kechwacha. I didn't eat it yesterday. Yidatqa kechwacha. So I don't know. It's a mystery.
Ah, goodness, geez.
What I say was going real slow today.
Is that worth noting, maybe in the conjugator?
Yeah, I think I should.
A small asterisk or something.
Right. Okay. I guess I gotta put a note. I'm gonna put a note in here. Okay. Okay. The latest one is, let me just share the link. So in the Tlingit curriculum folder under texts and my last name is where I usually keep the most current drafts of things that I'm working on. Oh, and we have a question about kawduwat'ál'i. Why is it called kawduwat'ál'i?
It's the seal intestine stretched out that let light in through our steam house.
Sounds good to me. How does that affect the language that we use for it?
Waki is eye. It's like the eye of the cha. Is that a tarp?
The eye of the
Or
chai.
the wall. Excuse me, maybe.
What's chai?
Cedar?
Chai.
Oh.
I guess you could have chai.
Okay.
Close. That is either tz'ekhit or atkanhiti.
Longhouse.
It's some kind of,
Gouache steam house.
yes. Sweat lodge, steam house.
Maki.
Ah, yeah, well, ishas yichatangitin.
I love that.
So, any other questions, thoughts? Welcome back.
What is ʼat? Crazy quilt? I saw it in the Lear notes, I think.
I don't know what the thing is. Anybody know what that is?
Like I know what like a crazy quilt is.
Is that like with a whole bunch of, just a whole bunch of messy patterns?
Straps and silks and yeah. It's
Crazy quilt, is that the question?
Mhm.
yeah, it's
I think
from-
it's just a whole bunch of scraps, you
Mhm.
know, from all the clothes that you've had and have around, and you just put them all together and whatever.
Patchwork blanket.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
A quilt with all your old school dresses.
or that, or just scraps of fabric. It's free form quilting, so you know that you're gonna end up in a square, and so you build pieces, and you can do it with math, or you can just do it free form.
Because if someone doesn't know about sewing, they'd be like, is that like a quilt you put on people who lose their mind? Right? I mean, that's like, because if you don't know, right, if you don't, like,
More modern quilting books kind of call it free form quilting than crazy quilting, but the like 80s and 90s books call it crazy quilting.
Actually, crazy quilt to a sock.
that's the Shkun Shan name for it.
Right? Like I know someone who did a batula like that.
Scrappy quilt. See, and if someone says scrappy quilt, I'd be like, oh, like you put that on before you get in a fight, right? Yeah.
I was thinking of Scrappy Dog
Oh, really?
from Scooby Doo.
So scrappy. When they say scrappy, it doesn't mean he fight. Does it mean he fights?
He was kind of like that, yeah.
Okay. Because scrappy can mean something else too, though, right? Okay, hold on. Okay, we got one in the chat, but I know Cheshkwan had a question.
Yes. I know that you've told us before, but how do you type the O with slash?
Yeah, how do you do that?
Oh, with the Crippen keyboard?
Yes.
Okay, so there's two things I use.
Does your keyboard have the little tiny like Héen like icon that says
Yes.
CL? Okay, as long as we're all on the same page with.
So yes, with the little with the Crippen keyboard, if you have it, holding down the Option key and pushing the letter 2 gets you the
Root.
root marker.
Yes.
Holding down the Option key and pressing the number 1 turns this little Y pops up. Now I can take my hands off of the keyboard, press the number 0, and that gives me the null marker.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other like
One,
deep. Here's some other keyboard tricks. Pull down the Alt key and press the straight. What is that straight? What is this thing called? This
The bar.
slash or the bar key.
Backspace. Is it, yeah, the
/ backslash.
Option one.
Backslash, I think.
This
slash
thing,
or the bar?
whatever is just to the right of the squiggly marker with the little bracket thing under it. And this gets you the double angle quotation mark.
Oh,
See, that one shows up when you do the floating keyboard, but it doesn't show you what you do when you do a two-step, like how for the 0. And so I was like, how do I get that?
Right. And I think option N, and then push N again, and then you got this little guy.
Tilde.
Wait,
mhm.
how to do this?
How do you get the 2 little dots like on top of a Y?
It doesn't.
Option Y.
Yeah.
Okay.
One.
No, you have to
Yeah.
hold down option and hit 1 at the same time.
Yeah.
Now hit 1.
Again.
Hold down option, press the number 1, lift up your hands, press the number 0.
Oh, 0. Ah,
You don't have to lift up your hands, really.
but
It'd be kind of cool if you did. Woo! Okay, let's see, one more. If we type, hold down the option and press the number 6, and then press a vowel, now we have a circumflex.
Okay, how do you do the arrows the other way again? The
For
double-
this one,
Mhm.
we need to call these double angle quotation marks.
Okay, how do I do the double angle
Angle quotation marks.
second one in the line there?
Hold down the option key and then hold down the shift key and then press that bar button, whatever it is.
option.
Let's see.
Shift.
Yes.
And on that note, you mentioned quotation marks versus those ones.
Oh, okay.
When would you use either one?
Well, there's two schools of thought right now.
Doing this.
One school of thought says you never use these, you only use quotation marks. And the other school of thought says you use these whenever you're typing in Tlingit.
Mhm.
Because what if you type ye, yawa, ka,
Huh?
it's a double vowel, just like it's supposed to be. And then you said,
Oh,
oops.
ah.
As opposed to,
Yeah, yawaka.
I think it makes the Tlingit easier to read. But the counter argument is that it's hard for children to read double angle quotation marks. Of course, that's not how I feel about it. So I'm biased in presenting my argument.
Is it House of Leaves that has no quotation marks throughout the whole book?
What is it?
I
Oh,
bet they learn.
Yeah, there's multiple books published that stylistically the authors chose to never use quotation marks for their dialogue.
right. Which, and Tlingit could do away with that as well.
Well, I wasn't bringing for us. Like, if we can switch between having no quotation marks and having quotation marks in English, kids can learn how to do a double angle.
I think so. But calling it arrows, I think, helps contribute to this idea that it's not used for something as far as language goes, and there's plenty of languages who use. That's why they're called double angle quotation marks. So I don't know.
Well, it's just a matter of how much you pile on top of someone who's trying to do something that's already fairly complicated. But I don't have an answer to the quotation.
No, it.
Okay, hold down option key and press the tilde button, and then you have a downward tone mark.
Ooh.
Type any letter like a V, hold down the shift key and the option key, and type the apostrophe, and you've just put a tone mark on that V.
Okay, I have been wondering how you were doing the V.
Okay, there'll be a quiz on Wednesday. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Well, you can double it. I can put 2.
We should just put another one.
Mhm.
How high can we go?
Why? What does that do?
Option filled V. No, that went the wrong way.
I don't think you're supposed to have two, but it is possible. Okay, in the chat there was a question about this. Oh yeah, so we have options as far as what kinds of quotation marks we should be using. So one of the things that's really interesting to me, kuni naxsaqa ilatu klingit. Ya yidat. Asa yituwuch. Kuni naxsaqa ilatu klingit. Ya yidat.
How many?
How many teachers are there now?
How many people are teaching Tlingit to people now?
Your friends. Learn Tlingit through your friends.
Well, like as, I guess, professionally, like that's their job.
That's their job?
Me versus me.
4, 5,
Jin
6,
cut.
7, 8, 9, 10.
Doch. Doch un jin cod. A day.
Yeah, and I think I told you to.
Yeah. I was like,
I never said if I told you don't answer. Yes, by my count, there are 42 people teaching Tlingit right now. So when it comes down to questions like this, honestly, I think we should present both sides of the argument and just poll 42 people and just have them vote on like a Google form, and we can just go with whatever the consensus is. And so part of the difficulties we have is there's small groups of people who are making big decisions for Tlingit, and we've got to find a way to reach consensus because we're going to run into things. And this is related to another question in the chat. So Tlingit has things that just change over time, right? There are just things that change over time. And some of those things, you know, people used to say ʼaduwóosʼ, but now what do they say?
Yeti.
Yes.
Yeti.
That's a change that fully happened. It has fully manifested itself. We could try and push it back, but also like I don't think it affects the meaning. I don't think it affects the language in a negative way necessarily. English does this kind of stuff too. If we just went back 100 years ago, there'd be all kinds of things that people do different that they don't do now.
Whitened.
Yeah, right? Or like, there was one we just had like the other day where, I can't remember what the context, but there was a group of us talking about kind of stuff that people don't use anymore.
Was, hath, tis.
Right?
I think
Just go into your hymns and you'll find them all over, right? And so, but there are things that we need to control. So for example, if we said, you all mashed potatoes. Potos, whatever. We could change English too, okay? Give it 50 years, people would call them potos. Okay, you all mashed potatoes. How are we gonna say it? We're not.
Okay, you all. Not them all.
Need the conjugator.
Kayaaní.
Kayaaní. So, and how would I say you singular mashed potatoes?
Kayaaní.
Close, but there would be kai with the. Well,
Kai taught.
Kia. Okay, so it's going to be kia, right? But like k'yaaq, yi'adlaq, this stuff, as once we learn this prefix, So something about the perfective is the perfective is separated by conjugation. So there's zero and then there's everything else. Na, ka, and ka. The only thing that changes is the stem. The prefixes will all be the same. They will all be the same. So you're going to have yidlak, kia'ach, kia'ach. I guess that's how you'd say it. So in this case, we have kia, right? So coming back, the question here is one of the things we do not want to shift is the second Y in the second person plural, especially the perfective. We want to hear ka yi touch. We don't want it to go ka yi touch. We want it to go ka yi touch. We have to focus on that second Y because there will be instances where it will be the same sometimes, right? Like let's just look at other, when we look at the conjugator, like we can be using it actively, where it's like, I need to figure out how to put this verb into this mode. But we can also sometimes scroll through and see. So we would have, well, if we have an S classifier, like kaise, and you'd have kayise. So that's when you get the kai sound, kaidze, but kayidze. And if we go into the negative, like I'm trying to think of examples. So ye and ye, or yida and yida, yissa, yisa. So there are instances where, yes and yes. So getting that second Y is important. So that is one thing that we want to make sure that that's what we need to do.
I think the other danger is sounds that don't occur in English will tend to get flattened out as people learn if we don't make an effort to preserve them.
Right. Yeah, So, like let's just run another verb through this, okay? So let's find one. I'm going to show you one that doesn't have a thematic prefix. It's a verb that we all know. And so we'll use this verb to run it through. Let me open a different document. So I do think I have to add something to this one, which is going to be an English section. Because I do think you can search for verbs, or if you know the theme, you can look it up. But let's look for this one. So we have this is a verb that we know. Object, subject, S classifier, ku, fading root, number one. We don't need that number one. It's to know something. For the subject to know or to learn the object. So if we go into here, and if I paste it, oh good, it keeps everything. I just gotta make it big. So here's our verb, and what we're looking for is, so there's object, subject, S classifier, ku. So we have used this before to put this together. This is an event verb. It's important to know this is an event verb because there should not be an imperfective of this verb. Like I would say chasaku. Coming in, so if we go for the perfective, and we're scrolling down, like this is zero conjugation, and it's an S classifier. So we should expect this to be long and high. So to say, how would I say I know it?
Wasiku.
Kwasaku. We know it.
Wasiku.
Tusiku.
Tusaku. You know it.
Yisaku.
Y'all know it.
Yisiku.
They know it.
Wasiku.
Gotta go to 3. There's an object there, right? So it's gotta be down to this one. Amsaku or ausaku. It is known. Dutsuku. Right? So we could put this into all of those, changing the subject. We could also go to the negative form of this. So we're going 0 conjugation S classifier. It's open, it's going to be short and high. Does that say perfective stem? Okay. Anyways. Oh, because the imperfective stem is unpredictable. Okay. So you have klesh in front of it. I don't know.
Wasak.
We don't know.
Tusaku.
You don't know. Y'all don't know.
Saku.
Oh, I should be saying it. They don't know it.
ʼaduwóosʼ.
ʼaduwóosʼ. We got to keep the in front of it. It is not known. ʼaduwóosʼ. It's got to go from z to s. Okay. So we can, there's another S classifier verb that we all know, and we'll just take these verbs that we're already familiar with and run it through this thing just to see. It's a good way to just sort of test this thing and start to get used to using it. So I'm going to go down to teen. And I'm going to grab the S classifier version. So this is qa. And I'm going to put it over here. I guess I don't need to. Okay. I don't need to copy and paste. So just looking at, oops, dang it. Okay. So object, subject, S classifier, teen, qa, event, verb. Another event verb. So let's look at the perfectives. But we have qa. Okay. I do want to cover it. Okay, we're out of time, so I just gotta go. So coming back, instead of 0 conjugation, we're going to go down to qa conjugation, which is na, ga, and qa. So here we are, S classifier. So we should expect teen, long and low. So how would I say I saw it?
A satine.
We saw it.
That's what was teen.
We saw it. We did see it.
Yisatine.
Ah, y'all saw it.
Ye satine.
They saw it.
Satine.
It was seen.
ʼaduwóosʼ.
So now for the negative, we're going to go down 0. So these are conjugations. So we're going to scroll down to na, ga, and qa. And then we're going to look for the S classifier, klesh. We look over here, it's going to be long and low. I didn't see it.
Klesh kwasatine.
We didn't see it.
Plesutusatin.
You didn't see it. Y'all didn't see it. Yeah, well, they didn't see it.
Tlel Augustine.
It was not seen.
Augustine.
Kashwudustine. Yeah, well.
Okay, why is there no M? Why is it not awus and amwus?
For the M, it has to go, there has to be a vowel before it. It has to go vowel, W, consonant, vowel. So in the absence of that, it will not change. That's the only way it will change. So you won't say amus, you won't say mus. It has to be amse, amse. So usually it's going to be only in the plus I version. So when we go to the negative version, that's where that usually shifts, because if you have sa, if you have an irialis or a perfective marker right before it, they knock the letter A out of that classifier. Wow. That's what, and that this is one thing that people tend to struggle with, is they'll say kesh ausk, and that cannot work. It's got to be kesh ausk, kesh awustin, kesh awustin. It's got to go that way.
It gets knocked out.
So the last thing is if we looked at the future for both of these verbs. So we're going down to an S classifier, yes. But the first one was 0, and the second one is qa. So you would say kaqasaku, gahtusaku, gaqisaku, gahisaku, aguhsaku, and gahdusku. But you would have to say yekaqasatin, yegahtusatin, yekaqisatin, yegahisatin, yeaguhsatin, yegahdustin. So the first thing is, if you have to know it, you're usually going to end up with this one on the left, kukasa and gakisa. But when you put ye in front of it, it forces it to contract. Yekakasa, yekakisa. Yidatkoa konach yisaku, ade aya, wooch tin kagachtu jesye, yaha yuchatungi. So like keep using this, and we're going to keep running some verbs through it so we can see, because there's an awful lot of rules that are being put into our brain, but now we've got I'm hoping this is the cheat sheet that unlocks a lot of stuff for folks, and that you can just keep using it until it begins to naturalize all of these different things that go into what happens when you change these verbs. And so if we had, so coming back, one of those things that we had just a minute ago, so coming back to an S classifier is, and we had right here, ye, whoops, oh, I'm on the negative, oops. Right here, ye sitin. Oh, I wanted to be on the negative, oops. Okay. Ye sa. How would I say? So we had ye sitin. So for example, we did this a while ago. So we'd have klesh ye satin. Klesh ye satin. You all didn't see it. How would I say I am glad you all saw me?
ʼatudli.átk chat yisatin.
There's one more thing.
E.
E.
Bing, bing, bing. ʼaduwóosʼ chat yisatini. I could do it all. Kechawek l'chi shuhan. Let me check the chat, make sure. Anything else before we go? Yes, I could put that in. Yes, I could make a note for the future that this is uncontracted and this is contracted. Vowel before will trigger the contraction.
Renee, does K trigger contraction in the same way that yay does?
Yes. Any, like if we had ade, right? Adik klagud, it has to contract. If there's any vowel before it, it will trigger the contraction. Okay. Who said this language was difficult? Sean. We got it, no problem. Enjoy the basketball games if you're going. Quiz them all. No, I'm just kidding. Kan sheesh klein.
Sheesh, Jagen.
Sheesh.
Sheesh.
Sheesh. Sheesh. Sheesh.